Okay. Well, I just want to say good evening to all our friends. We want to welcome you back to our Victory Wellness Center lecture series. This is going to be our fourth night, fourth evening, and I trust that you have been richly blessed and you have been enriched with knowledge that will help you to cope in these serious times. So, again, welcome. And if you have a friend, we want you to even reach out now and invite them, send the Zoom link to them. We're also on Facebook and on WhatsApp. So let's magnify our audience by extending invitations and sharing this with others. So it's good to see you. I want to thank our technical team for getting us ready. And are you guys ready for another wonderful, wonderful time? Well, this is brought to you by the Victory Wellness Center. As you have seen, it's a place where you can come to rest, relax, and rejuvenate so that you can go forward and enjoy your life. Now, this evening, we have a presenter that I like to hear. She's very versed in our art. This is Dr. Brown. She's a naturopathic doctor and an educator. And when she speaks about herbs, it's just amazing. And Dr. Brown, we just want to welcome you to our lecture series. And now it's your time to address the people who are here this evening. So welcome again. Okay, she will unmute soon.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Um, Today, I just want to say that I'm privileged that God has spared me and given me this opportunity. Again, I'm the one that was given the privilege to do the research and be here to share with you. Now, today, we will be looking at some exciting variables that deals with herbs. And I'm sure that by God's grace, this presentation will be of benefit to one and all that is watching. Now, our presentation this evening is on obtaining and and s- obtaining and storing herbs. And I choose to present on obtaining and storing herbs because this this topic, I believe, is very relevant at this time. Now, we are almost through the summer and we're going into fall and of course in North America we're going into fall. So I think it's befitting for us to look at how we can harvest the gift that God has given us for free. The ones that are for free and the ones that we might need to pay for that we might have planted in our garden. So we have them out there. Now, what do we do with the excess? And that's what we're going to deal with, how to deal with the additional or excess that we will not use fresh so that we can maintain the potency of these herbs. And that's what we're going to be looking at for the next 45 minutes, I should say. Okay. Oh. Now, as I mentioned earlier, God gave us all the herbs that we have on the earth, anywhere you are. whether you're in North America, whether you're whatever country you are, it's like welcome to the herb garden on earth. It's just to find out what are they used for and how can we use them. Even the ones that is deemed poisonous, toxic, they are of value, they serve their purposes. So I'm just welcoming everyone to God's herb garden, and that is earth. And in this scripture, it says in Genesis 1, verse 29, and God said, behold, I've given you every herb bearing seeds upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which the fruit of a tree yielding seeds, to it shall be meat for you. And that's what you will be using for your meat. And it means that anywhere in the world you go, because some of us, we harvest herbs in North America, we go back to our country where we originally from, we harvest herbs and we bring them here. And the way we treat them while we have them waiting to be used, because we don't use them all at the same time, is very critical in order to obtain the maximum potency from these herbs. And that brings us to our objective. Our objectives for this evening is to explain how to obtain and effectively store herbs to maintain potency. And this is very critical. And I felt like, the general public, even when you go to buy herbs, you're going to see some things after today. You will not, you probably wouldn't have noticed them before now. But the next time you go to purchase herb, whether it's in the health food store or you order them online, there are certain variables that you're going to pay close attention to after today. Okay. And that's one objective. And the next one is to describe the factors that affect the potency of herb you are using for healing. That is critical. It's very critical if we are in it to obtain results. Okay. Now, in order for herbal remedies to be effective, in the recommended doses, the herbs used must contain their full complement of active constituencies. And that's very crucial. These are some of the factors that presents itself when we try to use herbs as natural remedies, and this causes us to become even impatient with herbs. And when we become impatient with what God has given us, we are impatient with God. So God gives us these herbs, and we abuse them, we toss them, and once we get sick, we just pick them up, and they're just anywhere stored anyhow. And we pick them up and we want to use them, and we need instant result from them. And it doesn't always work that way. We must be mindful. We must be cautious. We must take care of them like they're gifts, very expensive gifts that's given to us. And we are taking care of it so we don't destroy the component or the chemical properties that could cause healing. Now, although fresh herbs are the best for flavor and health benefit, they aren't always readily available because of the changing of the seasons in different parts of the world. So, different parts of the world we go, we have different seasons, and the plants grow in different seasons. And that's for a specific reason. The seasons are there because there are certain chemical components that are developed in the plant that will only develop when the weather condition is a certain way. So when the season change, it really help to build those chemical properties that will help the plant to develop what it needs to create healing. Now, question. The question here is to identify two factors we need to take into consideration based on prior knowledge, what you know just generally, um, when collecting herbs. So when you're collecting herbs, what are some things that you need to bear in mind? And you could send your answers in. Ooh. Okay. Okay. And you could type our answer in the chat, or you could send your answer in. What are some answers that we're getting? Are we getting any response? There's no pollution. Very good. That's one. Um, okay, not in high traffic area. That's pollution again. I guess that's what we're trying to avoid, the health of the leaves. So there's, if it, no insect bitten. Okay, insects are not so bad. They need to live too. They need some of the herbs. Anyway, insect bitten herbs, we want to get good quality, which would last. The room temperature, very good. Okay, so those are some very, very good. The time of the day, very critical. Okay, so those are some of the response that we have. Thank you very much. And those are very, very good response that we need to actually bear in mind when we are actually obtaining herbs. Now, for the duration or for the rest of this presentation, what we are going to be looking at are these 7 factors that is stated right here that will affect the potency of herbs. And we would just need to pay careful attention to these factors once we are collecting and storing herbs at any point in time. So this is not just isolated to now, but it's also right across the board, because we the major harvesting season is in the fall, but that's not the only time herbs are available to harvest in North America. In North America, yes, but herbs are available other times. There are some species of plant that will live throughout winter, and going through the rigors of the winter, they will develop um, some some form of stamina that will enable it to add strength to you because of the chemical component that it develops. Now, these are the factors. So the factors here are the species, one, the time of harvest or gathering the herbs, the growing location and climatic conditions, the method of drying and preserving, the storage condition, the form of herbs, and the duration of storage. So we're going to take each of these variables and we're going to look at them individually. Now, I am going to ask you to write your questions down. We will take the questions at the end of the presentation. So any questions you have as we go through, just make a note of it. At the end of the presentation, we will answer all your questions. Okay, so the the first variable that we're dealing with is the species. Now, on the side here, we have 2 different species, same family, and these are 2 echinacea plant of different species. The species of plant, they look identical. You can't tell the difference just by looking at it. If you are not an expert in the field, and it's not even possible for me to point the difference out here in this image, it cannot be done, but what it says here, in some cases, more than one species will be sold under the same name. For example, echinacea is used to refer to both echinacea angustifolia, and that is one species of echinacea. There are many of them. And this is the Kansas snake root, and then Echinacea purpurea, which is also, it is the Missouri snake root, and those are the common names for it. These are two different species within the same group, but they are sold under the same name, and they are all sold as echinacea. If you go to the store and you ask for echinacea, you're going to get echinacea, but the potency of echinacea angustifolia is much stronger, and it is not readily available. It is not as available as echinacea purpurea. So as echinacea purpurea. So this this creates an imbalance in what you're getting. Your expectation of this of echinacea, buying echinacea purpurea, is not the same as getting echinacea angustifolia. And the point is, there are many other species of plant that you will go out and you will seek for, and you will get what you ask for. And once you ask for it, you're going to get it. But is it of the right potency? Is it a species that you want or expect to get? And these are things that you need to be very conscious of when you do your research prior to buying your herbs when you harvest them. Now, here is a question. Are you aware of any other groups of plants that will fall under the same family? Have the same last name, the first name, because the first name is echinacea. The last name is different. The species is slightly different. And do you know of any other groups that you have this issue with? Now, you could just put your answer in the chat and we could talk about it. A second, you put in, you ask all the other questions later. You're just trying to respond to this one. If there are any other type of herb that you know or groups that you will know. Okay. If you don't know any other, then we will move on. So, and maybe I could share an example. Okay. So, an example of oregano, yes, there are quite a number of different group in the oregano family, yes, that will definitely not have the same effect. And some of them can also be dangerous to use, but um, oregano is an example. You also have any other, okay, so parsley, any other group? Any other? Okay, so those are two. Anybody have any issue with cayenne? Have you ever tried buying cayenne and when you get it, it is just so weak? It doesn't have any, it is just so weak. Cayenne is also another example of that. So you bear that one is in mind. So cayenne is an example, another example. Okay, so we're moving on. And remember, we're looking at the factors that we need to bear in mind when harvesting or when we're gathering our herbs and gathering for storage. Now, the time of harvest is the next one, or gathering. Now, herbs must be picked when they contain the highest amount of medicinal essence. And different parts of the plant are dealt with in different ways. So the leaves are picked just before the plant is about to begin flowering. At that time, the energy of the plant is focused in the upper portion. Okay, so if the plants start flowering, if there is flower on it, like this red clover here, if there is flower on it, then you shouldn't be harvesting it for the leaves, because most of or all the essence of it is in the flower. Now, if you're harvesting for the leaf, you want to make sure that the plant is not flowering. Okay. Now, there's something very critical that we must remember. Now, these and other parts should be picked after the morning dew has dried up, when the morning dew has dried up, or before the hot sun has evaporated all the essential oils. Now, usually when the sun comes out, you could say, and days are different, because you might have a morning when it's not very hot and the sun does not come up with the intensity as a regular day. So the intensity is not the same if you have a cloudy day. So once you get to that point where the sun is blazing hot, you know that all the essential oils or some of the properties in these leaves are dried up. So you don't want to harvest on that day. You wait until the next day. Okay, the flowers are picked just before they reach full bloom, because once you wait until they're fully bloom and open, you're going to find that they lose some of their chemical properties, which is very crucial for the healing process. And the flowers of most of the plant we use for healing are edible, they are food. Okay, now the time of harvest continue. We already look at the species. Now we're looking at the time of harvest or gathering. We look at the leaves and we look at the flowers. Now we're looking at the berries and fruits. Now we pick at the peak of ripeness. So once the the fruit is fully ripe and is about to fall off the tree, that's when you harvest. And this might not happen all together at the same time, but that's the time that you will get the most benefit from the fruits. In most cases, for the fruits that we get in this part of the world, you will find that most of these fruits are picked very green. They are not fully mature on the tree. So, for the most part, what we get from our fruits are really very partial in terms of nutrients and chemical components that is essential for natural functioning. So, the normal component of these plants are not within the plant unless they are fully ripe on the tree. And that is why we are shortchanged to such a great extent with the food that we consume in certain parts of the world, because they're so inferior. They have to be harvested, they have to be steamed, and then once they are steamed, they kill all the enzyme. And by the time you get the food in the store, you're just eating dead food with no enzyme. So those are things that we need to bear in mind. So that is why it's so important that, once we could get something that we could harvest and harvest in the peak of ripeness, it is something that is very valuable for the vitality of our body. So we need to bear that in mind. Just bear that in mind. There's lots of wild berries and fruits that exist out there that comes to a peak, and we need to maximize the use of it. Now, a lot of berries was available earlier in the summer, and what happens to them? A lot of them fall from the tree and they just die. They just went to waste, and we didn't maximize the use of it. Okay, now the above portion of the plant is used. Now, when that is used, this usually refer to the combination of the leaves and the stems. And as I said before, they are picked just before the plant begins flowering. And it's different. We talk about the leaves, and sometimes the leaves by itself is used, and sometimes the leaves and the stems are used together. They are combined in their usage. So they both are picked just before the plant begins flowering. Okay, the barks and twigs of shrubs. And we're still on harvesting and gathering the herbs, the barks and twigs of shrubs. And we have a lot of shrubs that will be um, out there after in the fall. Once the leaves die back, you will have a lot of um, shrub. These shrubs are, the leaf fall off, so the sap will return to the stems of it, and they are collected in the spring when the sap rises and when the leaves fall first appear. So barks and twigs of shrubs are collected at that time. Okay, so the twigs, they wouldn't have anything leaf in them in the fall. Okay, now, the roots and the rhizomes are collected in the fall when the sap return to the ground as the leaves just begin to change color and the berries and seeds are mature. So this is very important for us right now. So all the dandelion, the plantains, the all the plants that are out there, the burdock, the yellow dock, the curly dock, all of those that are out there. Now this uh, going into the fall is when everything returns to the root. So that's the time to harvest the root. And I just want to make a distinction here between a root and a rhizome. The rhizome is an underground stem, which is different from the root. So I just want to make that distinction. And we have rhizomes for things like ginger and turmeric. So those are rhizomes, underground stems that we harvest and we use on a daily basis. And here we have a plant, and I think we all are familiar with the different parts of the plant and when we harvest them. So I might not need to go over this. We have the roots, the stem, the fruits, the leaves, the flower. And all of this section is called the above portion of the plant. And if it is flowering, we cannot harvest this for the stem and the leaves. Then we would have to harvest the fruits and the flower. Okay, so that's something. And for the roots, we harvest that in the fall, okay, for whatever plant that is. Now, and this is our third or third segment or factor that we will be dealing with. And this is the growing condition and the growing location and climatic condition. So the growing location and climatic condition is superb. It's very important. For any given species of plant, different growing condition will affect the content of active principles. And when we talk about principle, we're talking about the active ingredients, the constituents, the chemical component. This would include the nutrient quality of the soil and the specific weather condition during the plant's growth. So when we talk about the growing condition, we're looking at all the environmental factors that affect how the plant develops. Now, the nutrient quality of the soil is very critical, it's very important because if we plant, say, any plant in an area that is nutrient depraved, the plant will not develop in such a way that you will get the maximum constituent from the plant. You won't get maximum constituent from it, and the healing properties within these plants will be of inferior quality. And it's not just for the plants that we refer to as herbs, but it's also for all the food that we eat, all the food that we consume. A lot of our foods are grown in water, that's hydroponics. They are not grown in the original conditions. So, and this is one of the reasons why we must maximize the 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 soil or the backyard gardening or just container gardening that we can access in the growing season to grow some of the plants that we would eat. Because if something requires a lot of sunlight, like, say, for example, we think about the ginger that we buy here in North America. It's very fat and it is very l- plump and luscious. But does it have the potency of ginger that is grown in an area that has a lot of sunlight? And if you look at the strength of the ginger that is grown in sunlight, it is very, very different from ginger that is grown in water or in cool areas or we under control conditions. So they are very different. If you're to check your regular pepper, just plant a pepper in the summer and bring it inside in the winter, give it all the light that you can find and see what quality pepper you're going to get. It's going to end up being a sweet pepper if it's a hot pepper. It's a cayenne pepper, it will be sweet. And it is this switch that's in the plant when the environment is not right, it will not have the right, the constituents, the development of the chemical component in those plant or in the plant of whatever nature it is will be different. Now, growing location and climatic condition, we continue. Herbs grown on the north side of a mountain are more tonifying. And when we talk about toning, meaning like anytime we say toning, we're talking about it's better for like a tonic to build the body and toning and strengthening because of the increased power and stamina they develop in order to survive in a more difficult growing area. Now, the north side of a mountain will change depending on where you are. In North America, the north side of the mountain is the side of the mountain that will get consistent sunlight. It will be given more sunlight. Okay, so more sunlight will be on that side. If you go to South America, it's not going to be the same because of the direction of the sun, and the seasons are different. In North America, our winter is their summer and our summer is their winter. So we must bear that in mind. So right now in North America, the plants that are in North America, it's summer. In South America, it's winter. So it's different, and therefore the north side of the mountain is going to be different. So plants that are grown on this side of the mountain will be stronger. They have more they develop more properties that will be good for endurance because they themselves, that is the plants, develop endurance dur- to grow and produce. Herbs growing in lowland or near water are more beneficial for urinary disease. Okay, so those that survive that area, they will be good for urinary disease. You could always consume more of those type, which will help to reset the the bladder, the kidney, or whatever factor that affects you. Now, herbs growing in high dry desert region tend to be of more benefits to the spleen and pancreas to transform moisture in the body. So the different growing condition will impact the properties that is developed within the plant and thus the uses of to which it is put. So these are growing conditions, some of the growing condition. Now, growing location and climatic condition continues. Herbs grown in fertile nitrogenous soil would be of more benefits for digestion and assimilation. And in most cases, herbs like alfalfa and, and clover, this is red clover, they are very good at fixing nitrogen in the soil. And they would also be very good to help in the metabolism of protein. And protein metabolism is something that a lot of us struggle with because for more than one reason. because of weakness in the stomach, which produces pepsin. And pepsin is what aids in the digestion of protein. So it is as we age, we produce less pepsin. So we have more struggle digesting protein. So consuming things like alfalfa, we have alfalfa sprouts that are available in the store, and those are rich in enzyme and that properties that will help us to break down protein. And it is also very rich in amino acid, which is going to help in cell formation because protein is for building and repairing tissues. So these are natural foods that can supply you with or help you with the metabolism of protein and also help to build and repair your body and also in the digestive process. So those are some factors that you need to bear in mind. And we continue with growing conditions, climate, location and climatic conditions. Now, herbs growing in cold, harsh weather tend to be more building and heating in contrast to herbs growing in hotter, more temperate climate, which would be more for eliminating. So when herbs are grown in harsh weather, cold, harsh weather, they tend to drive more heat in your body. So it's the opposite. So they build your body more and they are better able to repair and keep you warm for that matter. So herbs that grow in temperate, which is the hotter areas, they have a way of being better eliminators, and eliminators are herbs that helps to, it will cause you to sweat or it might cause you to flush your system one way or the other. Now, so those are things that you need to bear in mind. And regardless of what, God made it this way that not all herbs will grow in one area and plants will grow in different areas so they can develop different properties because we all are different and we have different disease that will affect us. And what we can do, which is for another time, because it's very difficult for us to go through all the herbs that will grow in cold areas, all the herbs that will grow in hot areas. You know, there is a variation, and that is why when you go to your countries, whether you're from the Caribbean or you're from Europe, you're wherever you're from, you will always bring back things that you are accustomed to using, which is not readily available in North America. Okay, now question. Here, the question is to identify the herbal properties that, or the function of the herb that that grow in cold, harsh weather. What would this tend to? What properties would these plant develop? What would they be able to do if it's in cold, harsh weather? Can write your answer in the chat. We just went over it. Let's see what we remember. The next question that I want to ask, okay. Let me see from Diane, eliminating cold, harsh weather, body heat. Okay, so we have, okay, so body heat, yes, that's correct. Eliminating what weather would that be growing in? Build, build and heat. It drives heat. Okay, Angela, hot, hot, hot. Okay, it's provide heat. Okay, very good. So for those growing in cold areas will do the opposite. It drives heat. It provides heat. It makes you warmer. It makes you stronger. It's strengthening. Okay, so those in hot areas are good for eliminating. Very good. You all are listening. Okay. Okay. Now, growing location and climatic condition also influence the taste. It also influenced the taste of herbs, and this is very, very important. So the taste of herbs are important indicators of their properties. And I felt like I needed to break that up so it is more colorful. So the taste of herbs. So if herbs are sweet, it means that it is more nutritive, meaning that you will find that it has more nutrients in it, has more minerals, more vitamins. And herbs like ginseng and burdock, cannot leave these out. Ginseng and burdock. And burdock is very nutritive. I love to eat burdock just like that, especially the roots. Just chew on it like you would chew on carrots. It's very good. If I can't access the root like that, I will just eat the powder like that. But it is very nutritive. It's filling. It makes you feel stronger. And just the same way with Jensen. Jensen is like a arm and a leg. It's very, very expensive. So I don't buy that one as much, but I do use a lot of burdock in my own diet. Okay. So those that are sweet, and there are a lot more herbs that are sweet, which is very nutritive. And if you feel like you don't have time to eat, you could just get up and make some burdock tea, and you just drink that like you would drink some chocolate tea or whatever tea you drink, and you go and you don't feel hungry for a very, very long time because it is power packed with nutrients, iron, magnesium, vitamins, minerals, all of those are packed in these herbs. Herbs that are pungent. And pungent is dispersing, which means that it moves things in you. So things like coriander, ginger, mint, garlic, all of these herbs, they are classified as pungent, but they are very active in moving or driving things. So let's say, for example, ginger. Ginger is a stimulant. Cayenne pepper is a stimulant. All of those are within the same category, and they are classified as pungent because they move things. They help to move the cells, and they drive, open up the cells, and allow things to come in. Okay, so that's what we mean by pungent. Now, salty taste influence water balance and digestion. We were developed in salt water. We we are dependent on salt water within our body to have a balance, what we call balance or maintenance of homeostasis. So salty herbs like nettle, plantain, those are two herbs that are very, very are very, carry a salty taste, and they help in balancing, and they are also important in digestion. Nettle is also extremely rich in nutrients as well. Can't leave that out. So, these are some herbs that are readily available, and we can easily add them to our diet to maintain balance within our bodies. Now, sour is digestive and cooling. So when we eat sour things like hibiscus, lemon, and stuff like those are help in the digestive process. So we want to bear those in mind. Now, taste bitter is cooling and detoxifying. Example, dandelion is a bitter herb, but it is cooling and detoxifying. And then you have many other herbs that has multiple tastes within the same herbs. And I could only think of this the moringa, which that's the seed of the moringa, which has many different taste from consumption until, because I just know that I had the seed, and it goes from bitter to sweet, and it stays sweet, and it just lingers on. At one point when I was drinking the water, I thought somebody had put sugar in the water. Once so that is one herb that, I know the seeds have that kind of effect. And it also has many, many different properties. If you research it, you will see for yourself the properties are countless. Okay, so we're moving on. So we look at the species, we look at the time of harvesting, and um, we look at the location where it's grown and the climatic condition. So those are three things that we dealt with. And remember, we are looking at obtaining and harvesting herbs and storing herbs. That's what we're pretty much focused on, and we are obtaining the herbs or harvesting the herbs, and we are trying to look at the variables that will affect the potency of it, so that when we're doing it, we can preserve these herbs in such a way that we can use them and they will be of benefits to us. Now, methods of drying and preserving. Now, plant tops are generally washed. So this is what we do. We wash them and we hang them in a well ventilated, dry, shaded area. Must be dry, because if we have moisture, we're going to have problem. Unless the whole plant is going to be used, the plant is hung upside down, so that as it dries, the sap will run from the stem into the leaves. So we got to pay attention, and we must be sure of what we're going to use each plants or that we're preserving for. So are we going to use the leaves only? Are we using the leaves and the stem? Okay, so this is how you do it. You wash them, you hang them upside down. Now, if and upside down, so that the objective is to get the sap, and the sap is where the chemical properties are, and you want that part of the plant that you'll be using to be dried with the chemical properties. Okay, they may be tied in small bunches, or they may be spread on a screen. So you could spread them out on a screen as well, if you're going to use the entire plant. And then once you put them on a screen, you got to turn them every day, and so that they dry uniformly. Okay. Now, the roots and barks are carefully scrubbed and chopped before drying. And you want to chop them so that, depending on the moisture content, because some of them have high moisture content, once they dry, they should be an inch thick after drying, at least 1 inch thick. And that's something that you want to pay attention to, because then you don't want to give it too much surface air. When it's too small, the surface area is greater. And once you have more surface area, it is more likely that you will have more loss, and you will more loss of volatile oils and nutrients and constituencies. So 1 inch thick if you're drying the parts whole. Now, roots lacking in volatile oil may be dried in direct sunlight, while others should be dried in warm shaded areas. So we are not putting the plants outside in the sun on a piece of mesh or something, because that's not a good way to dry the plants. If you're drying something like lemongrass and you put it outside in the sun, lemongrass has volatile oils and the oils will be lost. So therefore, you want to make sure that you dry the plants like those in shaded areas. And mark you, when you finish drying something like lemongrass, it should look green just the same as it was, or a slightly darker shade of green when you finish drying. It should not look white. But once it's white, you will still have some flavor in it. It will still smell like lemongrass, but the potency of it will not be there. Okay. And you could also dry your herbs in a dehydrator. um, you turn it on and you give it a temperature of, it's warm air, but the air is not hot, and it will dry with a more even constituency. And these are some examples. This is drying and preserving on trays, and you could use these airbags, mesh, where you could dry them, turn them over, and they will dry more evenly and with a better potency. Now, storage. Now, storage condition, herbal properties are destroyed by heat and bright light. So we want to keep them away from any bright light, any kind of bright light or heat. And this sounds very contrary to what we're accustomed to. What we're accustomed to is that we will see the herbs, they are in very clear plastic or whatever, and they might be on your windowsill. We don't want that. Exposure to air by the activity of plant enzyme and fungi and bacteria. So we want to keep them away from those extra moisture so that they will not develop those sweaty thing in the bottle and then they start molding. Enzyme activity and growth of microorganisms are promoted by heat and moisture. No matter how you dry your plant, you are still going to have a little bit of moisture. Now, storage conditions. So we want to store them in an area. Even if you have your herbs in clear bottles, as in most cases you will see if you go in your kitchen right now, you're going to find that most of your herbs are in clear bottles. And that is why your cupboard is dark. So if they're not in the cupboard and they're exposed to direct sunlight, they're losing their potency, even if they're in a bottle. They should be stored in a cool, dry area. Now, and it is a mistake for us to hide our herbs in a dark room so that we don't remember that they are there. This is what we often do. We just hide them away. So we want to make sure that we keep them in a dry and the area is dark so we don't promote the growth. This is what most of our herbs look like when they're in storage. If you go in the store, this is what you will see. They are like this in the bottles on the shelf, and you can see them. These herbs are losing their potency because they're exposed to the direct light, maybe not sunlight directly, but they're exposed to the lights in the store on a daily basis. So what you're buying, it is of half of value. Okay, and we're talking about storage. Okay, so this is what we have, a dark container like this, or even brown paper bags, or bags that you can't see through. It doesn't have to be a paper bag. It could also be bags that have dark wrappings on it. Um, Plastic bags like this, it's breathable, so it's losing its constituency. We should not place our herbs on the windowsills. And I'm not talking about the growing herbs. I'm talking about the ones that are in the bottles, unless they are only decoration and you're not using them for healing purposes, then you could put them there for decoration. Okay, so that is something that we want to seriously bear in mind. Now, the forms of herb is the next one. We have different forms. We have whole, sift and cut, and powdered. Okay, so when we are purchasing herbs, these are the forms that we will get them in. Now, the whole herbs is it has less surface area. So we have here, and microorgan cannot get in the interior of the herbs, but it is also more difficult to extract the essence. So when we have whole herbs like these, we can use them for tincture, liniments, and decoctions. And these are usable for that purposes. Um, like herbs that are chopped. So some herbs are small, the leaves are small, and the flower are small. So they're usually sold whole. So herbs are cut and sifted so that it can take out the powder. So if you're making tea, you don't have a combination of powder and cut herbs, because it's difficult to strain the herbs when the powder is in it. So whole herbs are easily strained and they are used for most herbal application, except for capsules and boluses. So that's for whole herbs. Now, powder is used pretty much for capsules, and it could also be used for tinctures and boluses. And the advantage of using powder herb is that you could make a tincture within 3 days. It's much easier to extract from it because it has a lot of surface area. The finer you cut the herb, the more surface area it has. So to extract the properties from it is easier, but it's also easier to lose the component that is within the herb. Now, duration of storage, and this is our final slides. So the duration of storage. Now, in general, if herbs begin to lose their smell, so if you can't smell the herb based on its property, let's say you have a herb like nervina or lavender, and you can't smell the full, lavender, you have it in the room, anywhere in the room, you're going to smell it. If you cannot smell it like that, then you actually know that it's losing its full components. So it is better. You could use this for bath. You could use it for foot bath, for just taking a bath, soaking in. You boil it and then you use it for your bath. And in general, one should restock herbs every 2 years. Every 2 years. So, on average, some people might want to restock every year, as you could do every year, but sometimes we might have excess. And if the excess is that much, every 2 years is safe once they're stored in following the guidelines that we talk about earlier. Okay. Now, the different factors that we looked at, and remember, we looked at the obtaining and storing herbs, and these are the different guidelines that we talk about: the species, we talk about the time of harvest or gathering, the growing location and climatic condition, the methods of drying and preserving, storage condition, the forms of herbs that we obtain, and the duration of storage. And those are the variables that we just went over. And I pray that by God's grace, this was beneficial to someone. And if there are any question, then you could send your questions in. Okay, so the question is, can we freeze ginger root and turmeric root? Yes, we can freeze them. It is not when you freeze, you must remember, and in a lot of cases, you deactivate the enzyme.
Okay, I want to say thanks to Dr. Brown for this presentation, and I trust that it was a blessing to you.
Okay, so the question is, can we freeze ginger root and turmeric root? Yes, we can freeze them. It is not.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, so we're answering the question of it's if it's okay to freeze the rhizomes of turmeric and ginger. And I was saying that the it's okay, you can freeze it, but we lose some of the properties when we freeze. Um, the enzymes are deactivated, and once you thaw out to room temperature, it reactivates the enzymes. And that's kind of what happened when we dehydrate. And that is why we don't want to dehydrate or plant. We don't put them in the oven and blast the oven to 150 or 200 on them. That will be baking them. We're not baking the plants, we are dehydrating, meaning that we are taking the moisture out of them. And once we remove the moisture, the enzymes are deactivated, which makes them um, more difficult for mold to grow on them. So therefore, that would preserve them for a little while. And freezing them, you're doing a similar but reverse. You're freezing the liquid in the plant, and once you freeze it, the mold and any kind of um, microorganism that will not grow on them. So it's okay to freeze them. Yes.
Dr. Brown, we do have some questions that were posted earlier.
Okay.
The first one is, are there any herbs that can help with tingling in the hands and legs?
Definitely, there are herbs, and there's a group that is called the nervines, and it is a kind of difficult for me to answer a question like that, because then I would definitely need to understand the variables that are creating that problem. Because you could go and you could take all the nervines and all the calmatives, but what is the root of the problem? So I usually like to understand the underlying factors before I can say, okay, you could do this or you could do that. And that's how I prefer to deal with issues that are, just isolated like that.
Thank you. Another question that's posed, how do you determine when to harvest turmeric?
Okay. So, turmeric, usually, if you plant turmeric in North America, usually you would have a drying back of the leaves, and a lot of the leaves will start turning yellow, just like, and the season might be short for growing in North America if that's where it's grown. But if turmeric is grown um, in the Caribbean or somewhere where you will get the best potency, now you will find that the leaves start drying back. It start turning yellow, and you will see the yellowing of the leaves going down, and that will help you to identify that it's time to harvest.
Okay. Another question, I live in Brooklyn and my house is east to west and is attached on both sides. How do I plant the herb on the north side?
Oh, okay. So I okay, so I wasn't really in Brooklyn. I'm not saying to plant your herbs on the north, or you're in North America. Now, we're talking about north side of a mountain. So when we grow or any herbs that is wildcrafted, it's grown out there. A lot of the herbs that we use is not really planted. So I was just saying that herbs that are grown on the north side of the mountain, any kind of mountainous area, you'll find that it has to deal with greater rigor in order to survive, and because of this, it is strengthening and it is more toning. We don't even have mountains in New York, like right here in New York City. So I wouldn't expect you to be able to plant your herbs in on the north side of the mountain.
Okay. Another question here. Can ginger and turmeric grow in New York? I think you may have answered that partially already.
Yes, it would be a short season, but it can. It wouldn't. You wouldn't get the full, yeah, essence of it, because
Okay.
half of the growing season would, you will have a part of it that it will be driving it. It will be driven and developed, but for the full maturity of it, it will be later on in the fall, where it would not develop with the get to the point of full maturity, where you will have the potency of what we call turmeric and ginger. Yes, we get a version of most of those. Yeah.
Okay. Another question. Can I place herbs on the radiator in the home for drying in the winter?
Oh, no, 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 no. The temperature variation of the radiator, it, it it's not regulated enough, and sometimes it get very hot and it's too hot. We don't want a temperature that goes above 100 degrees Fahrenheit on any. um you want it to be warm but not hot. And if you put something on the radiator and leave it there, I'm pretty sure it's going to be baked. You could leave something there to bake in a lot of cases, and it will bake. Yeah.
Okay. Someone else is asking, at what temperature should the dehydrator be? I'm assuming this is from someone who's thinking of drying their herbs in a dehydrator?
It's nothing over 100. It has to be below 100. So between what you would call, don't go over 100. Simple, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, not over. You know, when you dehydrate something naturally, you don't go over 115 in order for it to be raw. So if it's over 115, it's no longer raw. So you're killing it then.
Okay. Please comment on growing herbs under a heat lamp.
Um, what I do know is that hydroponics, or not hydroponics, just growing herbs indoor, um, without the full, any plants that's grown indoor. I don't know if anyone have noticed how different they are in terms of their chemical properties. We would refer to those as weak. So plant rosemary, plant sweet basil, plant oregano. You're going to find that comparatively to plants that is grown, or these herbs that's grown outside when it's really sunshine, the properties are not the same. They're weaker. They're much weaker.
Okay. Are powdered herbs as effective if consumed months after going through dehydrated drying powdered process?
Can you say that one more time? I
So
didn't.
I guess they're asking if the powdered herbs are as effective if they're consumed within months after you dehydrate or dry or powder them.
So if they're less effective at that time,
Yes.
okay. Um, as is in the presentation, the powdered herbs have very large surface area. So the surface area is very large, and once you have large surface area, they are exposed more. So they are exposed more to the air. They are exposed more to moisture, and they're losing their potency much faster. So therefore, the properties of them will be lost faster. I mean, using them as early as possible. We get most of our herbs as powdered in a powdered form, and you know, sometimes you might want to call some of these companies you're buying from and ask them for the best and the freshest. And that's what I do. I tell them, look, this is what I'm asking for. There's no guarantee that you're going to get what you ask for, but at least you try.
Okay. There's a question here. Someone is looking for some clarification. Can you make it clear? Do we store herbs with oils in direct sunlight or in shaded area?
Okay, so all right, let me say this. Just to make sure I covered all the grounds. Herbs and oils, like essential oil, should never be stored in the same place. That's might not have been the question that was asked, but herbs that we will use or that has potent essential oils in them should not be dried in direct sunlight. They should be dried in in uh in an area that is away from the sunlight, or a shaded area that is warm and not hot.
Okay. Are there any herbs that can help with the symptoms of COVID-19?
Oh, yes, there are many, many herbs that can help with the symptoms of COVID 19. And if we are just looking at the symptoms of COVID 19, we're looking at coughing, we're looking at respiratory issues. We would look at things like quercetin. quercetin is a chemical component that we will find in things like pineapple, oregano oils. Oregano, you don't have to have the oil. You could also harvest the herbs and you could boil it, make a tea. Horseradish. Those are things that open up the respiratory system and drive these things in. There are, we have garlic, we have red onions. There are many different types of things that you have right at your fingertips that can be used for COVID-19. So, you know, and the symptoms varies for individuals. So we would also want to look at what we know it's a respiratory issue, but for those people who are diabetic, for those people who are hypertensive, then we'd have to look at the variables and see what works best for each individual.
Okay. What are the best herbs for building red blood count?
Well, we know right off the bat that you have things like burdock. That is very good. We have all the docs. They are detoxifying and they are built in. And we have dandelion. We could, yes, dandelion.
Okay. How do you identify parsley? Someone wants to know.
Ooh, parsley. And that's okay. So parsley comes from a family because parsley, cilantro, all of those, they are all in the same family. Um, and then parsley can be divided in groups. So you have the curly, you have the leaves that looks just like the cilantro. Identifying it as a plant out there, is that what the person wants to know? If
I guess that it sounds like that's what they're asking.
Okay. All right. Well, in order to be able to identify it, we'll have to look at the leaves and the stem. And parsley can grow. It's not depending on the parsley that you plant, some of them will look like shrubs. They grow into pretty big sized trees, not like a big tree, but they are like shrubs. So they will be there, and you might think that, oh, this is a big tree. This is not parsley. And then you have the curly leaves one that doesn't grow that big. And the only thing that I could say for right now is to look at the leaves. Some might be curly, and the curly leaves doesn't grow into a very big plant. And the other one that has flat leaves, that will grow into a much bigger plant. That's the simpler way that I could say it right now.
Okay. A few more questions here. What is there any danger in chopping herbs and infusing it in cold pressed oil and sea salt, and how long should it last?
Uh, I mean, there's no danger in that. You could actually do that. And that could last depending on how you store it, because oils also, in most cases, when you buy essential oils, you notice they're in dark bottles. You store it in a dark bottle and you keep it in a dark place, and it could stay covered and it will stay potent. You could have that up to three to 7 years, depending on how it is stored.
Okay. Someone is asking, what about mullein and elderberry for COVID-19?
Oh yeah, definitely. Those are respiratory herbs. Elderberry has a very high level of quercetin, so you could look for all the herbs that have quercetin in it. And once it has quercetin in it, it's very good for COVID-19 because it helps with the it helps in regulating the DNA and controlling the replication of the DNA.
Okay. Someone is asking, what herbs can be used for pain from a fall?
Okay, so we would like to know if that's a muscle pain or it's that a pain that is felt in the bone. Again, where is the pain? I mean, pain is pain, but we deal with them differently. If it's muscular pain, it's a different thing from um, a joint pain. Okay, so you're saying it's a joint pain. Okay, so if it's a joint pain, you're going to need something that is that can drive into the joints, like ginger, cayenne pepper. Those are things that you could apply on the outside. Create a poultice or a paste or a salve or something, and you got to tie that on. Use maybe some kind of wrap, plastiran or something, and you can combine those and attach it to the area and wrap it, and it will drive into the joints, and you will feel the difference.
Okay. And let's see, the last question I'm seeing right now is which one of the parsley is more potent?
Well, I like the curly ones better. I have never really looked into the potency of both, but I for some reason when I'm juicing, I feel like I'll get more from the curly leaf parsley.
Okay. All right. I think a few other questions are coming in. This person said, hello, I just joined. I grew up fearing herbs because I heard it can damage your liver. How should you use it? When is the best time to reap them? And how do you consume them for it not to be harmful? And how long should it take?
I wish I could have a conversation with this person because I don't know if they use seasoning to cook their food. I mean, and I don't know if those damage the liver, but I feel like yams or and some of the sweet fruits we eat are more destructive to the liver than the number of times that we consume herbs, and that is why we have so many people with fatty liver, because they eat more bread, more yams, more rice, more banana, and then their liver becomes so fatty it can't function. And then if you would take the time to eat a couple some from herbs or consume some of the herbs, then it might be less destructive. I mean, consuming herbs, I mean, is not going to destroy your liver. It's not going to destroy your liver because 99.9 of us don't get up on a daily basis and use herbs. We don't use it. We take more medication, Western medicine medication, than we do take herbs. And that is also destructive to our liver, but we're not concerned about the destruction of that to our liver. Growing up thinking that herbs is going to mess our liver up. Well, herbs can be if it's not used in moderation, but the moderation that we exercise is way far exceed the effect of it. Everything else is going to damage the liver except herbs.
Okay, Kirk, I know we've been here for a little over the time, but that's okay. Dr. Brown may be able to stay a little longer. Dr. Brown, you able to stay a little longer?
Yeah, I could.
So what we would like our technical person to do now is to just remind you guys, yes, it's right there. This is brought to you by the Victory Wellness Center. And you see, these are free lectures, very powerful, very well-informed lectures. And we're going to ask you to remember, we thank you for those of you who have been calling. Great. We want to remind you now that you can donate to Victory Wellness Center on Cash App. You could, the dollar sign there plus Victory Wellness. You can give a free donation to that. If you have Zelle, it is c.tramel, Tramel, at victorywellness.org, or 845-264-9404. 85264-9404. And you can also contact us at Victory Wellness, victorywellness.org, and also our telephone number. Now, this is if you want to know more, have more information about Victory Wellness. The telephone number is 845 444 9120. All right, let me repeat that. 845 444 9120. That's for those of you who want to contact us. You could also send in an email at info@victorywellness.org, info@victorywellness.org. Well, it was great having you, and I'm going to let Dr. Brown answer the other questions. But remember, next week going to be our second to last week. Dr. Jordan will be coming to present next week. At the same time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we want you to save that date and tell your friends about it. Things will only get better, all right? So donate to us, call us up, pray for us, support us. All right, Dr. Brown, I'll just let Kurt continue to ask you the remaining questions that the people have.
Right. What do you let's see, I'm sorry, let me go back to that. What herb can be used for sciatica? I think you're muted, Doc.
Yeah, one of the thing about things like sciatica, we would have to understand what's triggering it. And I can tell you to take any kind of calmative herbs, but then until we get to the factors. So sometimes you might be overweight. Sometimes the variables are so many. It might be stress. So we would have to get to that factor, and then we can pinpoint how do we approach dealing with it. But you asked about herbs, so I could tell you you could take anything that is calmative. You could take chamomile, you could take nervina, you could take vervine, you could take any of those. Those are all nerve, soursop. Those are all herbs that will help to calm the nerves. But getting to the root of what caused the problem is something that we would have to we that would really help with that issue.
Okay. There's a question here. I bought echinacea in capsule form online, but the bottle does not say whether it is puparia or angustifolia. How do I know the difference?
And then you won't. It's hard to know the difference unless you call the manufacturer and ask them.
Okay. What is a good herb for the skin? I think you might be muted again, Doc.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now, whatever is used or whatever comes out on the skin, it's coming from the blood. So the life of the flesh is in the blood. So we would want to clean the blood to get rid of whatever is being affected, whatever is affecting the skin. It's either the blood or the liver is fatty. So if we have a fatty liver, we're gonna have hormones that is filtering in the blood and it's not being removed by the liver. So therefore, the liver is not doing its work, and the blood is taking it around. And the way the body is made up, it has to push it out somehow. So we have to figure out which one of those is the problem and fix it.
Thank you. Any recommendations for nerve pain? I have a pinched nerve in my neck and I feel the pain in my finger.
Okay, so we have pinched nerve. We could recommend, again, we can recommend the nervines, the soursop, but we could also do some stretching. And it just depends on, you stretch, and once you stretch the area, there's also oils that are extremely good. Um, for Young Living, they have and I will say Young Living because I've tried, tested them, and used their oils. And they have a pack, a whole set of oil. It's called the raindrop therapy. And the raindrop therapy, I know, have helped many, many people that I work with. It is really a massage therapy that is applied to the spine. And once you apply the oils to the spine and massage, I mean, it really alleviates the pain that is experienced by, those people.
Okay. What would you recommend for numbness on the left side of the face?
Okay, so we would have to know what is causing it, and we just
Mm-hmm.
have to figure it out. It's just hard to be able to say, do this, do that, because I don't know what is causing it. So, all of these questions that are coming in, we could do a health assessment, and then I could go through all the variables and work with you individually to see what is the cause of this and how can we fix it.
Now, before I ask any of the questions that are listed here, are you available for people to call you?
Sure, you could give them yeah, they could call.
And Kirk,
Yes, Doc.
we must also remind the people that's one of the reasons why we have the wellness center. As you see, it's difficult for her to recommend things when she doesn't know the cause. So when you go to the wellness center, they will do, or you call up, they'll do an evaluation so that they can better understand what's going on before they do any recommendation. So we want you to remind you to call up the wellness center and and make an appointment. This here we need the number there for the actual call in, which is 845 444 9120. 88845. Somebody could put it in the chat. 444 9120. And that our new email also, you can put it there, the technical folks. And you can also call Dr. Brown. She's very skilled in these things. Thank you very much.
Okay. How much longer do we have, Dr. Daly? There are still a
What
few
time is it
questions.
now?
It's 6:28.
How many more questions you have?
Well, they're coming in. They're coming in.
Well, it depends on Dr. Brown.
All right, let me just go ahead with the ones that I have here. And
Yes, just those are the last ones. Take those ones as the last one.
okay. Let's see. There's a herb called rabbit's tobacco. When is the best time to harvest it?
Usually those are harvested in the fall. It's pretty similar to what we call mullein. And it is, you harvest that in the fall.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay, what herbs are good for varicose veins?
Ooh, varicose vein is what you call it, a loss of collagen, calcium. So it's the deterioration of the blood vessel. That's what it is. The blood vessel is deteriorated. So we want to use herbs like bamboo. Want to use herbs like nettle, stinging nettle, things like those to rebuild the tissues because the blood vessels are damaged, and a lot of a lot of um, a lot of the issues just are worn out. The tissues are worn out, and because they're worn out, and our body as we grow older loses collagen. So if we try to include stuff that has collagen in it in our diet, and I just mentioned some of the plant-based collagen, or which is high in silica, which will be a building help to build collagen. So we take things like bamboo. We can just boil the bamboo and it will extract some of the silica. We could use horsetail and we could use nettle. Those are very rich in silica.
Okay, there's a question here. This person said I have had eczema since I was a baby. At 53 years old, I'm still getting flare up in the summertime or when I travel to warm countries.
What I do know about eczema is it's in a family of When it's not one thing, it's going to be the other. It's either eczema, asthma. So this is a gut disease, and we have to clean the gut and remove a lot of and it's a process of elimination and examining. But for some people, it could be gluten they have an intolerance for, and as a result of that, and removing things that are gluten doesn't mean just removing um things that are made from dough, because some of our grains also have gluten. So we'll have to really holistically go through all the things that is affecting this individual at 53 years old to actually really, really get to the root of what is causing that. And providing that the endurance is there to eliminate all the things that she might have eaten all her life to get rid of this eczema. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Brown. I don't see any other questions, but I think this is a good time just to remind everyone that the information presented here is designed for educational purposes only. It is not intended to diagnose or treat any condition, and we recommend that you consult you work closely with your medical provider.
Thank you very much. I do agree with that one.
Uh,
Okay,
uh,
thank you very much, Dr. Brown. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, the technical team, and we're grateful for everyone who comes. And remember, though we present various conditions here week after week, there's only one healer, and that God is the divine healer of body, mind, and spirit. And those of you who are sick right now, as you trust him, he will work through the various things that we have recommended here. And as it was said, you consult with your doctor. God will work to bring about healing. So I want to say a word of prayer for you as we leave. Father, we want to thank you for the Victory Wellness Center and the services it offers to help restore in man the image of mankind, the image of God. I want to thank you for our presenter this evening, Dr. Brown, and for the time that she spent in preparing and presenting this very vital subject, and also for all the questions that were answered. I just pray right now that we leave here knowing that you wish above all things that we prosper and be in health, even as our soul prospers. And when we are dealing with anything about health, Lord, you are on our side because you came that we might have life and have it more abundantly. And for someone who may be on the line today and is really at her or his wits' end, try so many things and cannot get healing. I pray that they will remember that you promise in Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 17, that you will restore health unto us and heal us of all our wounds. Yes, you will you will heal us of all our wounds. The Bible also tells us that with your stripes, the stripes of Jesus, we were healed. Healing was purchased for us, but we have to cooperate with you and exercise faith in you to realize our healing. Above everything else, Lord, the healing of the soul, the healing of our relationship with you is most important. So help us today to ask you to remove anything that would block the healing of our souls. Grant us a very good night's rest. Bring us back next week for a second to last presentation. Help us to share what we have learned here. And I pray in a very special way for people who are suffering from COVID-19. Help them to know that we also have a program that has been very, very effective in helping people who are COVID-19 positive. Thank you for hearing our prayers now and for answering us in Jesus' name.